At a technical level, micro-features such as sound and music we have been careful to keep, especially the music, interesting and upbeat to fit in with the mood of our sequence. The lighting used is high-key, as our film is meant to be a bit tongue-in-cheek, and many films of this genre have subtle comedic aspects, and therefore do not warrant low-key lighting, as maybe other genres would. Mise-en-scène is very naturalistic, and everything you see fits in with its surroundings. Certain locations, such as the parole room, have only the bare minimum of props. This helps to create the sense of our main character being on trial of sorts, as he is very exposed in the room and there is nothing else for the audience to focus on. With regards to editing, we have observed most of the rules, such as the 30-degree rule, which I was insistent on observing as it looks odd otherwise. There are no massive jumps in the sequence, therefore following the rules of continuity and avoiding ellipsis, as there are no gaps large enough for the audience not to be able to fill in the missing parts themselves. We have, however, broken the 180-degree rule, especially in the first scene, but this is done in a stylish manner and does not appear odd or confusing. The same is true of the final scene. However, this was done out of necessity to show the grave, but I again do not think it impacts on our piece at all. We made a few mistakes, the main being having the frame capture rate too high on the camera on our first attempt at scene 1, which led to flickering lights, meaning that we had to reshoot this scene. I do think this helped, however, as the first time we tried the scene was a general shambles, and when we went back to do it again we were much more prepared and finished in half the time. Another semi-major mistake we made was not capturing the sound properly on the final sequence, meaning that we had to dub sound over. This has left us with an unusual sounding sequence in relation to the rest of the film. We've done our best to rectify this, however.
Hardly the ideal circumstances for a union either.
This won't take long.
We also learned from the preliminary exercise to use a great number of shots to cover our bases, in that we had several backup shots that if we noticed something was wrong with another shot later in the sequence, then we could edit one of the shots in that we'd done before. In taking more shots, we also used a variety of shot lengths and types, trying to make it as stylish as possible, such as the dolly shot and from under the car, which many people seem to enjoy. Our sequence does not really challenge the conventions of the genre, as it is a very typical heist film in relation to characters, in that one is very much the lovable rogue and morally ambiguous, yet remains the centre of the audience's attention. The other characters more settled and cautious, and not as important as the main character, yet respected by the audience all the same. The only challenge I think on the part of characters is that they are older than you might expect for this genre, but it's what we intended, that our twist would be that a couple of older criminals could be masterminding a plot. The characters are aiming also to take revenge on someone, as our sequence indicates, but it's our intention that the audience realise this will be done in a clever manner and not in such like a violent vendetta. Our sequence and story is very conventional, but we chose to do this as we already know that our film is a recipe for success because it follows the conventions, and it'll appeal to the same audience as other films of this genre have. The plot has no major twists other than what you would normally be expected, in that there's a disequilibrium in the middle, but it all works out okay in the end. I think that our piece would, in essence, be a steady crowd pleaser. Our sequence does not really parody any elements of the genre, as it follows so many of the conventions, but it does this in a respectful way, as was our intention, does not mock them. This said, there are some intertextual moments, mainly in the first scene, which is a very heavy reference to the Shawshank Redemption, as they use a scene which is very similar, and this is where our idea came from. We have taken this idea and added to it using a range of shots compared to those used in the Shawshank Redemption. Our aim with regards to the audience pleasure was for the audience to watch and enjoy with easy viewing, so as they wouldn't have to think too much for themselves. However, if they did want to look at the film closely, they could make the links there that, even if they hadn't done, would be explained in the end. I think that yes, we have delivered on this, as it's an easy and fun piece of film to enjoy and watch, and I think that some would want to see how it played out and see the entire film if it were produced as a full production.